the East African savannah, 800 years ago. A bone-crushing roar splits the darkness as 400 pounds of muscle and claw test the acacia barriers. Hyena calls echo from 3 directions, pack hunters circling for weakness. Inside the thorn compound, a mother pulls her infant closer as livestock huddle in terror. One broken branch, one gap in the defenses, and dawn will bring only scattered bones and bloodstains. Yet the family sleeps peacefully. This is no accident. This is the result of 4,000 years of architectural evolution, where a single design flaw meant death for everyone inside. So how did ancient Africans create sleeping sanctuaries in the world's most lethal landscape? Drop a modern person into ancient Africa and they'd become prey. Yet for millennia, entire communities not only survived, but thrived in environments where apex predators outnumbered humans. They had no steel, no concrete, no electric fencing. The answer lies in humanity's most ingenious predator-proof architecture, solutions so effective that modern wildlife experts still study and adapt them today. Unlike anywhere else on Earth, Africa forced humans to coexist with the planet's deadliest collection of apex predators. While other civilizations eliminated or relocated dangerous wildlife, Africa's ecosystem was too vast, too complex, too populated with lethal hunters. Lions delivering 500-kilogram impact forces, leopards scaling 15-meter trees in seconds, hyenas with bone-crushing jaws and pack intelligence, crocodiles lurking in every water source. This wasn't about building simple walls. It was about understanding the psychology. It was about understanding hunting patterns and physical capabilities of dozens of different predators, then creating architectural countermeasures for each specific threat simultaneously. The archaeological record reveals that ancient Africans didn't just solve this problem. They mastered it with innovations that rival modern defensive systems. But mastery began with understanding the enemy, and nowhere is this more evident than in the stone fortresses that still stand today. At Thimlik Ohinga in Kenya, dry stone walls rise 4.2 meters without a single drop of mortar. Every stone was cut and positioned to create barriers. But these builders knew that height alone wouldn't stop a determined predator. The real innovation lay in psychological warfare against lions. Lions, despite their incredible strength, are energy conservers. They can leap impressive distances but won't waste effort on uncertain terrain. The builders exploited this weakness. Wall tops were deliberately designed with unstable surfaces. Loose stones that would shift underweight, creating just enough uncertainty to deter even the most desperate predator. But the genius went deeper. Stone analysis reveals builders selected rocks based on their acoustic properties. When disturbed, these stones created distinctive warning sounds. An early alert system that could wake sleeping families the instant a predator tested their defenses. Yet even these stone marvels couldn't match the sophistication of the living fortresses developed in East Africa's savannas, where communities turned nature's own weapons against the hunters. The architectural ingenuity extended to material science itself. At Tatasamba sites, walls weren't simple mud. They were precise composites of mud, straw, and cattle dung, creating barriers 60 to 80 centimeters thick. The cattle dung wasn't just binding agent. It contained compounds that repelled insects and small predators while waterproofing. Surface treatments revealed even deeper knowledge. Nerefri was processed into varnish that made walls too slippery for leopards to climb. Chemical analysis shows Nara contains compounds that remain slippery even when wet, maintaining anti-climbing properties through all weather conditions. But material science alone couldn't protect communities where the terrain itself became the enemy. In the Maasai heartlands, families perfected history's most effective system. These weren't simple corrals. They were precision-built defensive ecosystems achieving a documented 99.9% success rate against lion attacks over 10 years of modern testing. The secret lay in weaponizing the landscape itself. Acacia mellifera wasn't chosen randomly. This acacia produces thorns in precise patterns, dense enough to create impenetrable barriers. Lions approaching acacia barriers will test them with their paws first. Mellifera's specific thorn pattern creates a painful but non-injuring sensation that causes lions to abandon their approach. Branches were cut from living trees during specific seasonal periods when sap content created maximum flexibility, then woven together using techniques that provided structural redundancy. If one section was damaged, the surrounding framework would immediately compensate, maintaining barrier integrity even under direct assault. The breakthrough was in the layered defense concept. The outer ring of thorns was just the beginning. Inside, elevated sleeping platforms placed families beyond reach. Platform heights were precisely calculated, high enough to be safe from lions and hyenas, but low enough that leopards couldn't use them as launching points. In Ethiopia's brutal highlands, communities faced challenges that forced them to reimagine the very concept of shelter. At 4,000 meters elevation, temperatures plummet. Ethiopian communities transformed natural rock shelters into advanced defensive systems that protected families for over 47,000 years. At Vincerhabra, archaeologists discovered sleeping arrangements that read like military tactical manuals. These weren't crude cave dwellings, they were carefully engineered positions. The entrance modifications were particularly brilliant. Boulder piles were strategically positioned to create maze-like approaches that forced any predator to expose itself to defenders. The design exploited the hunting patterns of highland predators, leopards, and hyenas that relied on surprise attacks were forced into disadvantageous positions. Even water access was integrated into the defensive design. Year-round springs were channeled through stone-lined passages that prevented contamination while maintaining security. Sleeping areas were positioned to provide multiple escape routes, but only through passages too narrow for large predators to follow. Yet even these mountain fortresses couldn't match the audacity of communities that decided to abandon the ground entirely, taking their families hundreds of meters skyward. The Dogon people of Mali created perhaps the most extreme predator-proof sleeping arrangements in human history. Their cliff dwellings placed entire families beyond terrestrial reach. But accessing these aerial sanctuaries required solving engineering puzzles. Hand and footholds were carved with precision, remaining impossible for even the most agile predators. The granaries built into cliff crevices reveal extraordinary planning capabilities, securing food and family in the ultimate masterclass of African architectural ingenuity. These structures could only be accessed through climbing routes that required specific human techniques. Routes that exploited the fundamental differences between human and animal locomotion. Food storage was literally suspended in mid-air, protected not just from predators, but from floods, fires, and human raiders. Inside the cliff dwellings, sleeping arrangements included multiple backup safety measures. Even if a predator reached the living area, multiple escape routes led to higher chambers accessed by humans familiar with secret passages and climbing techniques. While mountain communities reached for the sky, forest dwellers faced the opposite challenge. How to sleep safely when predators could approach through dense vegetation, forest cities. In Central Africa's dense forests, communities developed an entirely different strategy, building upward into the forest canopy itself. Archaeological evidence reveals advanced construction techniques that incorporated living trees into sophisticated structural systems. The construction required detailed understanding of tree biology, which species would support specific loads, and how to integrate multiple trees into unified defensive structures. The genius was in the access systems. Climbing routes to sleeping platforms used removable elements that could be pulled up at night. Even the most accomplished climbing predators found themselves stranded on lower branches, while families slept safely in the canopy above. Emergency escape routes connected platforms between multiple trees, allowing families to move through the canopy without ever descending to ground level. But individual family solutions couldn't match the scale of protection needed for entire cities. In West Africa, one civilization decided to wall off the threat. Africa's Great Wall. In the 15th century, explorers were stunned by the walls of Benin, a 16,000-kilometer network of earthworks and stone barriers. The primary purpose was to create predator-free sleeping zones for one of Africa's largest urban populations. Earthworks reached 20 meters in height, requiring 100 times more material than the Great Pyramid of Giza. The real innovation was the integrated design. The construction incorporated advanced drainage systems that prevented wall erosion while creating water obstacles that deterred. crocodiles, and other aquatic predators. Sleeping compounds were positioned to provide overlapping fields of observation, ensuring that approaching threats could be spotted before they reached inhabited areas. Yet even Benin's walls couldn't match the architectural perfection of the stone cities in southern Africa. The Stone City, Great Zimbabwe. The great enclosure's walls reach 11 meters high with foundations 5.5 meters thick, creating barriers that protected thousands during the height of this civilization. The dry stone construction technique was revolutionary. Without using mortar, builders created walls that were actually stronger than conventional masonry. Each layer was slightly recessed from the last, creating a stabilizing inward slope that distributed weight and provided structural redundancy. Inside the enclosures, sleeping arrangements followed military precision. The circular design eliminated blind corners where predators could hide. What unified all these solutions was intimate knowledge of predator behavior. Every defensive feature exploited specific weaknesses, a lion's energy conservation or a leopard's risk assessment. In 2018, Tanzania's Living Walls project achieved 99.9% success rates against lion attacks using traditional acacia barrier principles. The loose stones on top still shift underweight, still deter lions through psychological warfare rather than brute force. The next time you lock your doors at night, remember the families who slept peacefully while lions prowled beyond barriers engineered with stone tools. They conquered the world's deadliest landscape, not through superior strength, but through understanding that turned nature's own weapons into shields.